Hey, you made it to chapter 2. Congratulations. I hope you enjoyed chapter 1. And I also hope that you've gone through the questions at the end of each video. If you have not, I recommend you kind of pause and go back and do those questions because we're going to be building on those concepts that we went over in chapter 1. Now, chapter 2 is where I'm going to teach you cybersecurity policy. In this chapter, I will be showing you how to ensure your network meets compliance. While teaching you that process, my goal is to help you to fine-tune your critical thinking skills and your technical writing skills. So what is security compliance? In the general sense, I like to use the analogy of a car inspector. When you buy a car, before you can take it out on the road, it needs to be inspected by an inspector, right? I don't know exactly what these inspectors do, but I can imagine they have a checklist of some sort to make sure that the car is in compliance, aka the car is fit to be driven on the road. For example, does the car have 4 wheels so it can be controlled on the road? Does the horn work to alert people? Are the windshield wipers rotating so you can see in the rain? Things like that. Well, whenever companies have an enterprise network, they have a certain set of checklists/requirements to follow. The requirements is based on the type of data that the network holds. Let's take Johns Hopkins Hospital as an example. I'm sure part of their company's mission goals involve the need to save files that contain patient medical records. Therefore, they hold medical record data. Well, those medical records need to be protected from being leaked to an unauthorized party. Unauthorized party meaning someone that is not supposed to see them. Imagine your neighbor accidentally getting an email from your doctor that reveals that nasty rash you've got behind your you-know-who-what-where. You'd be pretty upset about that, right? Well, the government agreed that health companies should be accountable for how they protect medical data. So they came up with the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, also known as HIPAA. The investment industries have a similar set of network security requirements listed in the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, SOX. I'm sure I mispronounced that. Financial institutions such as banks have to follow the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, GLB. But we're not going to focus on these laws and their requirements in this course. The one we're going to focus on is called the Federal Information Security Management Act. Now that I can pronounce, aka Fisma. It was enacted in 2002. Fisma requires every federal network to have certain security requirements in place. Similar to my car inspection analogy, every network has a long checklist of security things to check off before the network can be used. So, check out this federal government org chart here. It shows all the different departments within the federal government. Each department you see here has multiple agencies and sub-agencies. And many of these agencies have their own enterprise network. And each of those networks is required to comply with Fisma. So you can imagine that's a lot of compliance work. According to Wikipedia, the federal government spent $6.2 billion on IT security in 2008. Man, imagine how many security analysts that money can buy. The federal government is big business. In fact, it's the biggest business in the world. What's inside that long checklist that Fisma requires? And who writes them up? I'll tell you. Under the Department of Commerce is an agency called the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST. This agency is responsible for making things standard for public use. For example, they make sure every light bulb has the same base size so it fits every light socket in your home. Things like that. So when Fisma came out and said, hey, all your federal network must now be secured, they commissioned NIST to make the standard guideline for all networks to follow. Now, this Fisma checklist/guideline in a nutshell is processed in 2 parts. In the first part, we'll call it part 1, a security analyst will create what is called a system security plan. The system security plan basically says this is how we plan to keep the network secured. For example, it could say we plan to force every user on the network to have a minimum of 14-character password to log into their computers. In the second part, we'll call it part 2, a different security analyst will take that plan that the first security analyst created and test it. This process is called a security assessment. In the same example, where the plan says we use 14-character password, Well, the second analyst, aka the assessor, will literally go to the domain joined laptop and try to set up to a 13-character password to see if the declaration written in the plan is true. In the next set of video, we will take a deep dive into part 1 of being Fisma compliant. Stay tuned.